About 200 years ago, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm traveled around northern Europe collecting stories. They cataloged these fairy tales into a book which we now know as Grimm's Fairy Tales. Jacob and Wilhelm did this because those stories were an important part of their nation's shared culture and history, their heritage, and they did not want those stories to be forgotten. In Australia, the indigenous people have an extensive oral history that dates back 10,000 years. Their stories are a remnant from when the world was a completely different place, and they have actually helped scientists, learn more about what the world looked like 10,000 years ago. And 1,000 years ago in Japan, the tale of Genji was written, which is widely regarded as the world's first novel. The point here is that stories have been an essential part of humans since the very beginning. We use stories as tools to entertain each other, to warn each other about things, to teach lessons and morals. And nowadays, we are surrounded by the stories that we hear in news articles, the stories that we see in movies or TV shows or podcasts or books, children's books. And with this vast amount of information comes plenty of stories that are, to put it simply, just plain terrible. There are so many crappy stories out there. And for us to continue creating stories that can last generations, and for us to continue creating stories that will be memorable for maybe thousands of years, there are 3 attributes that we can include in our stories that will help us to do this. And these attributes are diversity, depth, and development. And these are, aspects of stories that can help to make them great. The vast majority of stories that we are exposed to feature characters. Hank Green, a successful author and YouTuber, says that when you're writing a story, you have to love your characters. Amazing stories have amazing characters, and something that makes characters even better is diversity. Diverse characters draw in the audience and enrich the story. Because we live in a diverse world, and we are always going to have diverse audiences, doesn't it make more sense to have diverse characters that those audience members can relate to? When we have diversity in stories, it creates characters that everyone can connect with. And in most books and movies, the vast majority of characters are white. Not only does this make stories less interesting, but it also alienates portions of the audience. Black Panther, the movie that came out, was very impactful in part because it was one of the first widely spread big budget films that features Black role models who are superheroes. It gave so many Black children role models to look up to, and it gave them role models that looked similar to how they look. And this has a huge impact on their self-esteem and on just the message that they get about their importance in society. And so stories also need good LGBTQ representation, because people who have yet to come out, when they see those stories, it gives them the message that they are loved and heard and accepted. And diversity in media gives minority groups the message that they are loved and that they can still contribute good things to our society and that they are wanted. Diversity in stories not only helps minority groups, but it also helps majority groups. Stories put you into the shoes of the characters, and there are many studies that say that stories can build empathy. According to psychologist William Chopik, stories expose us to uncomfortable ideas and provide us with the opportunity to take others' perspectives in a safe, distance way. When we watch or read stories about people who are different than us, it puts us in their shoes, and it widens our understanding of their life and their struggles, and it widens our worldview. Diversity in stories is important because we live in a diverse world, and if we want to have a proper understanding of that world, then we need to have a proper understanding of all the characters that live in it. And if we want to have this proper understanding, then we need to be exposed to those people on a daily basis in the stories that we hear. One famous book series that has been acclaimed and rewarded for its diversity is the Percy Jackson series. This follows the tale of a 12-year-old boy who finds out he's the son of a Greek god, and it relates all of his adventures and trials. So, while the author, Rick Riordan, does feature a long list of diverse characters in his stories, if you go back to the original Percy Jackson series, you'll notice that most of the characters are white. But the special thing about these characters is that while they are not diverse in their ethnicity or their race, they are diverse in their personalities, opinions, and experiences. Which leads me to my second point, that stories need to have depth. When stories feature characters and plots that delve deep into emotion, background, and motive, it makes the story come alive. Consumers of stories find it more interesting when there's more to the story than what meets the eye. The Percy Jackson series is loved because of the depth that the characters have, and this depth helps the audience members relate to them. And the same can be said for Pride and Prejudice. Although it was published 200 years ago, this book is still read and admired for the character depth that it displays. And to have incredible stories, you have to have incredible characters with depth and development and emotion. And not only will the depth make the characters more interesting and relatable, but it can also help to drive the plot of the story. Would you rather read or watch a story that has no depth, the characters have no dreams and no motivation, or would you rather read or watch a story that has characters who have motives and who have strong opinions and goals that help move the plot forward? The stories that we remember will be the stories with characters that are intriguing and a plot that is driven by those characters, and this can only come through depth. And not only do stories need to have great, diverse characters and depth, they also need to have development. For us to continue creating great stories that will be passed down, we should have character development. And character development is the process of change that characters go through from the beginning to the end of the story. Movies, books, and plays almost never end at the same plane of existence where they start. The characters always change, grow, and learn through their experiences. And when characters do this, it shows real people that they can learn from their mistakes and that they can grow and develop. One beloved story that excels at character development is Avatar: The Last Airbender. This children's TV show has won the Peabody Award, the Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Cartoon, and the Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation. Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing story because every single one of the characters goes through character development. And it follows a group of children who are tasked with saving the world from an evil emperor that's trying to take over, the rest of the world, basically. And the wonderful thing about this story is that it is very complex. And at the beginning, you think the main villain is going to be the Crown Prince Zuko, but it turns out that he goes through an amazing character arc and development, and he learns from his mistakes, and he turns out to be one of the main protagonists. And this character arc is so phenomenal because it is honest and raw, and it shows him learning from his mistakes and seeing the effect that his actions have on people. I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender when I was 6 years old, right around the time when it came out. And it has become so popular that I still watch it today, and that Netflix is actually going to make a live-action series based off of it. Character development makes a story better in that it reflects the development that real people go through, and this helps them connect the storyline into the characters. So if we want to have memorable stories, we should include development in them. And don't we want to create the best stories that we can? Don't we want to create narratives that will impact people and that will connect with people and that will be remembered for generations? If we apply these attributes to our stories, it can help them to be better, and this can even go beyond stories that we use for entertainment. Think about this. What if news stories examined the depth of a situation? What if they told about all the factors involved in an event, the context, what was going on in the lives of the people, how that affected their actions? Think about what would happen if history stories portrayed the diversity of opinions surrounding an event. What would happen if we talked about events and how they have impacted a diverse cast of people? Imagine if religious stories or inspirational stories that we tell to each other showed how those people developed into the figures that we admire today. If we apply diversity, depth, and development to all kinds of stories, then we can have a more complete understanding of human nature and the world. Stories are so important, and because of their impact on society, we need to be careful about the kinds of stories that we tell. If we want to create stories that go down in history like Grimm's fairy tales or like the native Australians' 10,000-year-old history, then we need to carefully craft our stories so that they have an impact on people. Diversity fosters empathy, and has an impact on minority groups. Depth shows that there is more to people than how we view them, and development strengthens stories and portrays change in a positive light. From now on, think more about the stories that you are consuming. It's not bad to be picky about what you're reading or watching or listening to. Choose to watch or read good stories with diverse characters who go through development and who have depth to their personalities. And if we apply these attributes, then we can create stories that will go down in generations and that will continue to affect society for many more years. Thank you.